Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth of 6 City of Mesa Climate Action Plan community engagement sessions. Today we're going to be discussing water stewardship. And again, we've had just a fantastic response to this webinar. We've had nearly 80 community members register. And so with that in mind, we're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to join here. We'll start a couple of minutes after the hour. But in the meantime, please feel free to use the chat. It's always fun to see who's in the meeting. So if you'd like to share who you are or what agency or group you might be representing, please feel free to use that chat and you can start the discussion early. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. All right, I think most people have settled in now. So again, welcome to the City of Mesa Climate Action Plan Community Input Session. Today, we're going to be discussing water stewardship. My name is Teresa Jackson. I'm with a firm called Greenplay, and we're supporting the City of Mesa with the community engagement portion of the Climate Action Plan. Developing community-based action items is a key and critical goal for the city. Today's meeting is a webinar format. Most of us are familiar with that at this stage. So you can see us, but unfortunately we can't see you. Additionally, all attendees are currently muted. However, during the second half of the meeting, we really want to hear from you. And so there'll be two ways that you can participate and engage with our panelists. You can put questions, thoughts, ideas in the chat, or if you'd like to use the raise hand feature on your toolbar, you can raise your hand. I will call on you and unmute you, and you can directly have a conversation with our panelists today. So through this community engagement input process, it's really important to us that we're reaching all areas of the city and all demographics. And so before we get started today, I have just 3 quick polls for you so we can get a better sense of who we're speaking to and who we're reaching. So our first poll here, and you can select more or one. We're looking to understand if you live in Mesa, work in Mesa, play in Mesa, study, or own a business. Almost there. I'm going to give it another minute. All right, looks good. And our next poll is related to the council district that you most closely associate with. So this can be that you most frequently visit or you live. And on the screen, you should see a map of the city with those council districts. Okay, perfect. And our last poll today, what is your ethnicity? Please select all that apply. Wonderful. Thank you. So to kick things off today, I'd like to begin by introducing Scott Boucher. Scott is the Director of the Environmental Management and Sustainability Department for the City of Mesa. Scott, can you take a few moments to introduce the CAP and our panelists today?
Certainly. Thank you, Teresa. And good afternoon, everybody. I see some familiar names in the chat box, so thank you for joining us again. And those of you that this is your first time, thank you for joining us. Just quickly, I'll lay out how we got to where we're at today. So the Mesa's climate action vision really has been led by our council. It's a council strategic initiative. They meet every year and go over their strategic initiatives. And last year they added a strategic initiative that they called Healthy Environment. And from that strategic initiative, we then began development of the climate action plan. And that was presented to council in June of this year, and council approved the climate action plan. And now this is a plan that will evolve over time with new technology and resources as things become available to us. You can go to the next slide. So again, thank you everybody for engaging today with us. There's an opportunity to engage also if you go to footprintfuturemesa.com. There is ability for you to engage. There's more opportunities for you to engage in this process through that website. You can also get to the climate action plan and read the whole plan. If you haven't been able to do that yet, I would encourage you to take a look. And there's really a lot of information and, as I said, other opportunities for engagement for you on that website. One of the things you can see through there is the current metrics that we have. So these are metrics that are related to city operations and relate to the climate action plan. Just to give you some examples, some of them are our building energy usage, our percent of street lights that are LED street lights, water consumption by the city, gas consumption, energy consumption. So there's a lot of things that we're currently measuring that are available there that you can take a look at and see some of the trends that we have been able to create with our current sustainability programs. The next slide. So in the climate action plan, there are 4 aspirational goals. The first aspirational goal is carbon neutrality. To achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and enhancing carbon sinks. We are also striving to reduce our carbon footprint of city operations by 50% by 2030. The second aspirational goal is renewable energy. We're looking at having 100% renewable energy by 2050. The third goal being materials management, of diverting 90% of the waste currently going to the landfill by 2050. And I will mention that all of these aspirational goals are focused on city operations. So it's what the city has day-to-day control over. But what we also have is aspirational goal number 4, which is what we're working on today and have been over the last several months, which is community action. And that is to develop a community-wide climate action plan. And what we would like to do through this process and through the website Footprint for the Future and some other outreach efforts that we have is incorporate comments and ideas from the community and incorporate that into a plan that doesn't just cover city operations, but it covers the entirety of the city. So if we could go to the next slide. So there are 6 focus areas within the climate action plan. You can see here it's energy, air quality, heat mitigation, water stewardship, materials management, and food systems. What I'd like to point out is that these are not silos that are separate from each other, but they are interrelated to each other. An example, it's a good example today as we talk about water, is that there's a lot of energy that's put into water. And what I mean by that is there's energy put into taking raw water and making it drinking water quality. And then in addition to that, once you have used that water, it goes down your sink, it goes down your toilet. It then goes to a wastewater treatment plant. There's a significant amount of energy that's used at that wastewater treatment plant in order to treat it to the standards we need to in order to discharge it from those wastewater treatment plants, either for some sort of reuse or recharge. And so all the energy that's put into that water, what you can do is if you are conserving water, you're actually conserving energy at the same time because that energy does not need to be used to either produce or clean that water up. In addition to that, that affects then air quality, because most of the energy that we have does have carbon emissions associated with it right now. And so if you're saving energy, you're also helping out with the air quality. So as you can see, these are interrelated to each other, and they're not separate systems. They're all interrelated. The next slide. So this is the first thing that we did, is we were asked by the council to put together the climate action plan, was put together a city operational carbon footprint. And you can see that here is the carbon footprint for our city operations. You can see there's really 5 categories, 5 slices of this pie that account for most of the emissions. Those would be our employee commute and mobile combustion. So that's employees driving to and from work, and then employees driving at work. Building electricity use. Again, as we discussed, the electricity does have then emissions that are associated with it. Our street lights, and then water distribution facilities. And this just ties into what I was talking about with the water energy nexus. So we are working with departments to study policies and programs that we can implement or have implemented to reduce these emissions as much as we can to get to those aspirational goals that we discussed. In addition to that, Maricopa County did a greenhouse gas emissions inventory in 2018 for the overall city. And so this is what we will be looking at as we move forward, is how can we now incorporate these sources into our reduction strategies as we move forward. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to a great group. The panel that we have today is really a fantastic panel. We have Brian Draper, who is our Water Resources Advisor in the Water Resources Department. Becky Zuzi, who is a Water Conservation Coordinator in the Environmental Management and Sustainability Department. And Laura Heineman, who is a Deputy Director in Environmental Management and Sustainability. So I'll turn it over to the panel.
And we'd like to start our discussion with a poll to get you thinking about your own water use. Teresa, there we go. How many gallons of water does one person use per day on average? We have 4 quantities listed: 25 gallons, 55 gallons, 120 gallons, or 350 gallons. What do you think is the correct answer?
We're about 75% in. I'm going to give it 20 more seconds here. All right. We're going to share the results of this one.
Wow. Well, this is a pretty educated group and a bit optimistic. 120 gallons is the correct answer. Most people don't realize that when we are looking at gallons of water that one person uses per day, we're also counting the landscape water around your home. So thank you for that. And let's hope we can all get to 55 gallons soon. I'm going to kick off the presentation today by just saying that water is really essential to every facet of our lives, yet here in the Sonoran Desert, it's one of our most limited resources. Previous generations have planned and made investments that make living here practical. Now it's our turn to make choices and plan to ensure that future generations also have a vibrant place to live. And I'll turn the floor over to Brian Draper.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks, Scott, for the introduction. When we talk about water stewardship, there are several components that roll up into this. A couple of these making the best use of our resources, and one of those, by example, is conservation, and ensuring we have ample supplies to meet build-out demands. Mesa has been doing that through a long history of careful planning, robust infrastructure investments, and building a diverse water portfolio. I would be remiss if I did not discuss our water portfolio to you here. And as you can see by the pie chart, Mesa has 3 primary sources of water that include surface water from the Colorado River via the CAP Canal, Salt and Verde rivers via the SRP system, and groundwater supplies. And that little sliver of the pie depicted as other, we'll kind of discuss a little further in one of the upcoming slides. Regarding the Colorado River supplies, weather impacts and system usage contributes to surface water shortages. And I'm sure we've all heard about that in the news lately. Regional partnerships, including the 7 Western states and 30 Native American tribes, are working together on system conservation measures. And if you put that into perspective, that's around 40 million straws drawing water from the Colorado River system. So it's pretty expansive. So let's talk about what Mesa is doing to prepare for the future and how you can help. Next slide, please. So regarding infrastructure and operational efficiency, not only does Mesa Water Resources Department proudly deliver safe drinking water, it manages infrastructure that supports renewable water supplies for the future. And these include such things as pipes, pumps that move wastewater to the treatment plants so that no drop of water is wasted. And when we're talking water reclamation, we're taking that and we're delivering it to different destinations for beneficial use. One beneficial use of effluent is recharge, and you can see in the picture depicted there, that's Granite Reef Underground Storage Project in Northeast Mesa. This is one way that Mesa increases its water supply through storing water underground for use during peak demands or shortage. On average, Mesa recharges about 8,000 acre feet of water a year, and that's about 5.4 million gallons per day. Mesa has almost 530,000 acre feet of water stored in the aquifer, and these long-term storage credits are a very important part of Mesa's long-term resilience planning. Mesa recently completed the Greenfield Water Reclamation Plant, which was one of Mesa's largest CIP projects, and it treats wastewater, and the effluent from that is sent to the Gila River Indian community with an exchange agreement where we get Colorado River supplies in exchange for that water that is used for irrigating crops. And another aspect of water stewardship is preventing water loss. Once we treat it at the water plants, we don't want to lose it back into the ground. So we have been rolling out latest technologies to detect the leaks, and we rigorously inspect and replace areas that we know we have losses in the system. To date, Mesa is well below the national average and the state requirement of 10%, and we're currently sitting at 5% water loss. So I encourage you to read more on the Water Resources Sustainable Water Supply website. Thank you. Now you've seen this pie chart that Scott mentioned earlier on, and this is kind of the city snapshot of our carbon footprint. What most people don't realize, as he had mentioned, it takes a lot of energy to deliver drinking water and to process that wastewater. So one of the ways Mesa looks to reduce our greenhouse emissions and to get closer to carbon neutrality is we're capturing the byproducts from these wastewater treatment plants known as methane, which is one of the large greenhouse gas components there. And to date, we're taking that, which is normally flared off to the air. You'll notice the wastewater plants do have large flares, but we're scrubbing that now, and we're reselling that to the open market where it can be reused. We're also looking at opportunities to scrub that and put it into the system where we can fuel our own fleet, for example, in solid waste. So that is one opportunity that we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint here in Mesa with city-owned facilities. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, when we think of shortage, everyone naturally goes to drought. And while drought is a main cause of water shortage, there are also factors that can cause shortage, such as infrastructure failure, customer demands, chemical shortages, or outages. Mesa has a water shortage management plan that sets guidelines to manage shortage conditions, and it prevents the need to implement drastic reductions. The plan anticipates future conditions, such as what's going now on the region. And rather than focus on short-term reactive strategies, Mesa is focused on long-term cultural changes. We encourage residents and businesses to adopt a desert lifestyle because in a desert, water is always scarce. Recent studies of tree rings have showed that in the years of 1500 was one of our most extreme droughts, which coincides when the Hohokam were pushed out of the valley here, who once had an intricate irrigation system for their agricultural purposes. Current drought conditions far exceeds what the tree ring records show for the 1500s. So how do we continue to have an economy and to continue to grow? It's because we have wise use of our water resources and we've learned to manage that. A copy of our water shortage management plan is available on Mesa's Water Resources website. The second thing we've looked at is implementing a new water ordinance, and it's called our Sustainable Water Allowance Ordinance. This policy creates a water budget to manage large water users who project their demands to be at or over 500,000 gallons or more a day. The ordinance requires these customers to stay within their budgets, and they may be required to go out and buy other supplies. These supplies could be either surface water or long-term storage credits, which in turn they have to turn over to the city of Mesa. And then we include that in our portfolio to deliver to these facilities. So City of Mesa Water Resources has been attempting to protect our supplies, but yet allow economic growth to continue within our community. And with that, I'll turn it over to Laura to discuss surface water protection.
Great, thanks, Brian. So it doesn't rain much here in Mesa, but when it does, it's important to understand what the quality of the stormwater runoff is. Green infrastructure, like this example along Southern Avenue, actually collects that first flush of stormwater. The green infrastructure removes hydrocarbons and sediment from the runoff, just improving the quality of the water, the stormwater that will eventually reach the Salt and Gila rivers. There's some added benefits of green infrastructure. It also provides supplemental water to plants, and it helps reduce our urban heat. Conservation and adopting a desert lifestyle are key to assuring that Mesa's sustainable future. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky so she can tell us more.
Hi, thanks, Laura. I think Brian and Laura have both touched on this, but we can't emphasize it enough that water conservation is definitely a way of life here in Mesa. It's part of our everyday. The city has actually invested in water conservation since about 1982, and it is integral to our water planning. We have a variety of programs designed to help all of our customers use water wisely. One of our goals that I think we've touched on a little is to promote a desert lifestyle. For example, our parks are building recreational areas that take advantage of the desert. The example shown here is Desert Trails Bike Park. It shows residents how to enjoy a natural park that uses minimal water, and it also includes preservation aspects. Desert Arroyo Park is another lovely example of showing off the beauty of our Sonoran Desert while minimizing water use. I wanted to show you our parks and city facilities are also utilizing new technologies to stay on top of water leaks and better water management. The graph that you see shows a program that assists our staff in water usage and efficiency at our parks. Next slide. Desert landscape provides all sorts of benefits, many benefits, not just aesthetically, but of course for our environment. Mesa supports a variety of landscapes throughout the city to showcase the possibilities of desert plants and xeriscape. Seeing the beauty and the practicality of these landscapes encourages our residents to plant for things like water savings, air quality properties, wildlife, including butterflies, you see our monarch haven, and shade. And as Scott touched on, these benefits are integrated in so many of the focus areas of the Climate Action Plan. Understanding your own water usage can lead to reducing your usage. And we have all sorts of tools for residents, such as our updated water conservation website with information and tools to guide you in ways to save water and money. The My Utility portal, that's the graph on the left from customer service, allows customers to view their usage in water and energy, as well as pay their bills and find links to the latest city information. Within the next few years, we will be offering smart meters that will show real-time data to have an even greater awareness of your usage. Next slide. Water Use It Wisely is a regional educational campaign, which hopefully most of you are familiar with, that was started here in Mesa. And it is designed to encourage people to understand how to save water. In addition to a strong social media and traditional media presence, this is a very wide-reaching campaign, and it features a website with more than 100 water-saving tips, an interactive watering guide, how-to videos, and kids and teacher resources. As you can see on the picture, tip number 1 reminds us all that there are a number of ways to save water, and they all start with you. We definitely do not want to leave our youngest water customers out of our efforts to save water. We do have a partnership with Mesa Public Schools and provide a curriculum that emphasizes water treatment and conservation for our 4th grade students. We also offer a puppet show for our 1st and 4th graders, and it reaches students in a little bit of a different way that provides a lasting impact on how they think about water. Single-family homeowners, residents, can update their landscapes with our Grass to Xeriscape landscape incentive and receive up to $575. I was just hoping you would note the transition in these pictures from blah to shady and attractive as the plants and the xeriscape grew at this Mesa home. In order to encourage more shade and the many benefits of trees, as well as water conservation benefits, residents who participate in the Grass to Xeriscape incentive can include low water use trees and receive an extra incentive. It's called Trees Are Cool. We definitely didn't want to leave out commercial customers either. So commercial customers such as HOAs, businesses, churches, and more can also receive incentives to reduce their water consumption. We offer a Grass to Xeriscape option, as well as irrigation efficiency incentives of up to $12,500 for these sorts of properties. And for more information, I encourage you to check out these websites. We are here to help. I'm going to put the websites in the chat, and then I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
Okay, thank you, everybody on the panel, Laura, Brian, Becky, for the information. Really though, the idea of today is to get information from the residents and the business owners of the city of Mesa. So I'd like to open it up now for any questions, or even better, any ideas that you may have for us as we start looking at the climate action plan on a community-wide basis. And so we'd like to get ideas and thoughts from the community. You can do that either through the chat, right, Teresa?
Correct. You can put your questions, thoughts, ideas in the chat, and we'll share them with the larger group. Or you can engage directly with the panelists by just using that raise hand feature on your toolbar.
And don't be shy.
I was just going to say the same thing. I'm not seeing hands yet. Okay, we have our first question here in the chat from Caitlin. How does this plan specifically encourage and support household minimized use of water?
Okay, and knowing that this plan is focused on city operations and the things that we do within the city, but this is an example of something I think that crosses over. We have city operations that then the work that Becky does, she works specifically with homeowners. So Becky, would you like to take this and you could maybe explain a little bit of how you work with homeowners and in ways that they can save water?
Sure. So as we said, conservation's been around a long time, but I think that the climate action plan is emphasizing that water energy nexus that our panelists spoke about. And we continue to offer programs, and we're hoping to hear from residents right now and throughout this process if they have any further ideas on what they would like to see happen or what kinds of programs they are hoping to hear about from us. So at the moment, we have like I talked about, the Grass to Xeriscape program, and we really want to emphasize with Water Use It Wisely and with our online, our website and all those sorts of things, ways that you can, as a household member, save water on an everyday basis. I'm hoping that answers your question. If not, oh, Brian's raising his hand.
I just want to build on what you said there, Becky, and just emphasize as a homeowner, when you do begin changing out older fixtures and appliances, just to always ensure that you get appliances and fixtures that are water sense labeled, because those have been scrutinized and they are definitely the most water conservative fixtures and appliances you can use. And that will definitely help minimize indoor usage of water. Now, as Becky alluded to, outdoor is a little kind of different animal, and Becky tries to work with folks through the rebate program on that.
Great. Thank you. Our next question here is from Bob. Bob lives in a 55+ community, and he asks, what could you suggest as a means to motivate and implement conservation?
Okay, I'm
Becky?
going to jump in.
There
I've
you
worked
go.
with a lot of homeowners associations and a lot of 55+ communities. And what's interesting is water conservation touches on a lot of areas of your life. It hits your wallet, it hits your beauty of your home, talking about what's that term for home value, real estate value, all of those sorts of things. So it's interesting to be able to talk to people in a multitude of ways. And at a 55+ community, maybe they're interested in making sure it looks nice. Maybe people are interested in ensuring that it saves the most water. So there's so many ways that you can encourage customers, or your neighbors in your case, to make sure that they're using water wisely. And again, I'm really hitting on our websites, but we have some great resources available there. And I don't know if everyone's going to get our information, but you are more than welcome to contact me. I'll let Teresa handle that part, to work directly with a 55+ community. If it's in Mesa, we definitely offer talking with folks, writing articles for your newsletters, all sorts of ways.
Great, thanks, Becky. Our next question, I'm going to probably kick over to Scott to start off. It's from Dominic, and he's asking what your department's goals are to enact water code changes for new development of both residential and commercial projects.
And Teresa, I think I'm going to move that one over to Brian with the water department and let him talk about what we're doing right now.
Actually, as a region, AMWA, which is 10 cities that are members of, we're actually currently going through and vetting different ordinances that address aspects of water conservation. One, for example, is a dedicated landscape meter, so that we can monitor what usage is occurring outdoors and maybe work with those folks on reducing that demand. But we're currently working on that. We just, as I mentioned before, with the large water user ordinance that we implemented 2 years ago, that was a huge effort there regarding development. And those were large water users that really make an impact on the water supply. And so that was more on the industrial commercial side, but from a residential point of view, we are currently working on draft ordinances that hopefully as a region, we can implement some of those so we have some continuity here in the greater Phoenix Valley.
Great, thanks, Brian. Next question is from Sandy, and this is really hitting on one of the CAP's current aspirational goals. Do you have any plans to educate all residents of Mesa about the CAP and ask them to make suggestions about what citizens can do to help Mesa meet CAP goals?
I guess maybe I'll take that on a little bit, Teresa. You're a part of the process that we have right now. We had some meetings in each council district. So the 6 council districts, we had face-to-face meetings. About 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now that we had those meetings. We're almost a little more than halfway through, I guess, the virtual lunchtime meetings that we're doing. And we've been working with Teresa and her group, Green Play, and she's taking the questions and the comments and the feedback that we have gotten, plus the website that we have. And we're going to take that information and Teresa's going to synthesize that down for us some. And then come the beginning of the year, we'll be looking at those next steps on reaching out to residents and businesses as we start the then development of the next CAP that we will have. Well, hopefully that answers the question. That if you're participating in our outreach right now, we're trying to reach out to as many people as we can. So I guess the one thing I would ask is if you know folks who may be interested in this, please let them know what we're doing, because we would love to have even more participation in this.
And one thing I'll add on to that is on the Footprint Future website, we also just launched a survey about a week and a half ago. And that survey is going to help us to identify what's possible. What are the actions community members are potentially willing to take that can be integrated into the plan down the road. And so we encourage everyone to participate in that survey and to share it with their friends and family. So our next question is from an Eastmark resident, Brandon, lives out in Eastmark and sees a lot of recent tech-related construction. Says, I'm concerned about over allocation of our limited water supply for these water-intensive operations. Can you describe the vetting process related to businesses coming into Mesa?
Brian?
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, actually, part of our new water ordinance, I keep alluding to these facilities when they initially come into planning, to say they would like to come to Mesa. We get a very good snapshot of what their demands are going to be. Definitely, we try to steer them more to a dry, cooled facility. There are a few that are wet cooled, one of which has been popular in the news lately. They're at Ellsworth and Elliott, they're on the southeast corner. They're actually bringing water to the table. They went out and purchased their water supplies and have turned that over to the city of Mesa. So essentially it doesn't impact Mesa supplies, but they are creating a demand on our infrastructure because we still have to deliver that to them. But some of the other growth you're seeing out in that area are dry cooled, with the exception of Apple there at Signal Butte and Elliott. So these two facilities, I can guarantee you Apple is very environmentally friendly, and they are definitely attempting to do all they can to reduce the footprint that they have in Mesa, not only on their water supplies, but in the region. So they're reaching out and trying to have more renewable energy coming into their facility to try to reduce this carbon emissions, that, because they are a large energy user. So we do vet them, but there's always a thin line when you're talking, economic development and losing the traction that the city has obtained in that technology corridor. So we have been working with them on that.
All right, thank you. Our next question from Robert. What collaboration efforts for water conservation are there with neighboring cities such as Tempe and Gilbert?
I'll jump in. And Brian already alluded to a couple of those things. We do have a couple of regional groups that we work with, the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, long title, 10 cities. We are always working together. We definitely know that we don't live in a silo. I can cross baseline and go to 2 different communities. So we are always working with the neighboring cities. Water Use It Wisely is also a regional, there's 20 cities, including a lot of the cities in the Phoenix area. So there's all sorts of collaboration all the time. We love to share great ideas, success stories, challenges. If somebody's found something to be extremely effective, we always collaborate on those sorts of things. Hope that answered your question.
Thank you. All right, next question from Ryan. How does the city balance the Arbor City and want or need to plant lots more trees with new water usage regulations?
You want to take that, or should I, Becky?
You start and I'll jump in as needed.
Okay, that's a great question, because we get this, and it also goes to the idea that people think if they remove all landscaping from their yard and it's nothing but rock, that this is somehow beneficial to our climate. And it's really not. Becky talked about how those trees provide shade, they reduce your energy use. If you are thoughtful about where you place those trees on your property on the east and west side to really block your exposure to the sun, you can reduce your energy use. There is this connection between water and energy. So if you can cool the environment around your house, and you can, you will reduce our demand for water. And then just the environment itself, just planting plants on the ground, reducing the urban heat in general also really helps. So water and energy, it's a very close connection, but also urban heat is something we always have to keep in mind. Becky, what do you have to add?
I think I'd like to just throw this out there. I think it might answer another question about choosing trees, and as part of the Tree City USA and all of that, we are required in in the city right of ways and city medians to plant plants, that sounds odd, but that are on the state approved low water use plant list. So we're already using plants that have proven to be low water use and effective in our desert environment.
So this next one is really in that same vein, but it's tied more to parks and golf courses and what actions are being taken there to reduce water use.
Becky, you're doing a lot of work with parks and the water fluence. Maybe you can explain a little more.
Yeah, so that little, I know it was quick snippet, that graph that we showed is a program, and it's called Water Fluence. And it's one of many options that we use to make sure that we're using the right amount of water. So when we do provide grass, we usually want it to be for recreational purposes, because obviously people need to be able to run, walk, play on these surfaces, and we want to use that water efficiently. So we're providing a resource, but we're doing it at the most efficient way we can. So water fluence is a technology that allows us to make sure that the right amount of water is being applied in the right place. Like I said, that's one example. Our streets people do the same idea. They are looking at the water use on the plants that they are keeping alive and keeping beautiful and helping reduce heat island effect with, and they want to make sure that they're doing it efficiently as well. So golf courses are a little different, and I don't know if you have anything to share about that, Brian.
Sure. Thanks, Becky. As far as city-related golf courses, those golf courses have a water right because they fall in the SRP system. So they have a right to water. The right is tied to the lands. And they're also given a water budget as part of ADWR, which is Arizona Department of Water Resources. By state statute with the third management plan, they're given a water budget and they're not allowed to exceed that. So between the two, we're able to control the amount of water that's being used. But I would add that city golf courses have made strides to reduce unnecessary turf and start putting in low water use on the fringes and just keeping grass in the fairways and on the tees. So they're doing their best to try to reduce that. Privately owned, again, it's a mix. They have water rights that go way back, and those rights are tied to groundwater wells that they had on the properties at the time that they were constructed. A lot of those being in Sunland, a village in Sunland Lakes, Sun Lakes. And so unless they closed down and we were able to take over that water right, we're not able to really shut those down at this time. But I will let you know that golfing's slowly becoming less profitable. So you're starting to see more and more golf courses slowly begin to shutter. And then we're able to take that high water use and turn it into a lower water use.
And I will just add with that, with the parks, and Becky and Brian both kind of hit on it a little bit, that we are using turf in areas that it needs to be used. But the days of just going from curb to curb with grass covering every portion of a park they're over with the city of Mesa. We try and strategically place that grass where it needs to be, so we can play in those areas, you can relax in those areas, but we're no longer just putting grass everywhere and sprinkling that grass the whole time. We're trying to be more strategic, and not even trying, we are being more strategic. Even we've had some parks that have opened that they don't have any turf on them whatsoever. And where we're using the natural beauty of the desert and incorporating parkscapes into those. And so I'd encourage you to visit some of our parks and see the differences that's been made with them.
So earlier it was mentioned that the Colorado River represented over half of 2020's Mesa water supply. What is the concern or exposure moving forward with the looming reduced Colorado River allocations?
I guess I'll take that one. What is the concern? Well, Mesa's very concerned. It is a very serious matter, and we don't take it lightly. but we knew this was coming. It's not a surprise. Back in 2007, we had a consultation with the lower basin states and the upper basin states on the Colorado, and we came to an agreement called the Drought Contingency Plan. And there's provisions in there, and you've heard about it in the news. Arizona, when we hit tier 1, was required to take a reduction of 512,000 acre feet of water. That sounds like a lot, but a lot of that is excess water that people weren't able to use, as well as agricultural water. And the Aggies, they did agree to this, and they knew that at some point in time they would lose that water. But we did make efforts to supply them with other sources like effluent, for example, or some of the other cities, when they had unused supplies, they went into an exchange agreement with them to continue to supply water so they can continue business. But I won't, candy coat it. It's an issue. It may get worse, but Mesa has prepared for that. When I talked about the recharge of effluent, and we had 530,000 acre feet of water, that's 6 years of water stored underground that we can pump and serve and supply the entire city of Mesa. We also have other supplies on the Salt River system that we can bring down and supply throughout the city. So Mesa is planned, and we're continuing to plan with other projects you'll probably hear about in council in the next few months. On other projects, we're looking to expand the water resources, the portfolio that we have here in the valley, to supplement what we may lose on the Colorado. But I won't candy coat it, but the sky is not falling. We have planned and prepared for this day.
Thank you, Brian. Our next question is from Tessa. So she's curious about the panelists' thoughts on artificial turf for the use in residential settings. Are there any negative environmental concerns when compared to rock landscaping?
Becky, would you
I'm
like to take
jumping
that?
in. And Laura, if you have anything to add, just go
Oh, no,
for it.
go for it.
So artificial turf is growing in popularity, but it isn't something that we necessarily recommend for a few different reasons. Most of the time when people choose to put in artificial turf, they choose to not put in plants. And again, we emphasize the importance of plants and the benefits that they provide, including the shade and the air quality and the habitat creation, all of those good things. And unfortunately, artificial turf is also made from petroleum, and it does end up in a landfill at some point in its life cycle. So that's not something that is very environmentally positive. There's been a lot of concerns about the heat. And again, it's not only not reducing urban heat island, but when you put bare skin on it, you may actually get burned. So that's not something that we recommend. A lot of people are spraying it. A lot of people are still watering it to then cool it off. So if you're going to be watering something, it should probably be a plant. Did you have anything else, Laura?
Oh, no, that was great. Great response, Becky. We do get that question a lot, though. So Becky is used to answering that question.
We do. And with the Grass to Xeriscape incentive, we get that question a lot, and you can incorporate it into your xeriscape landscape, but you still need to put in low water use plants. So you can incorporate it, just it can't be an entire artificial turf landscape.
Great. Thank you. So we do have an attendee that would like to pose a question to the panelist. So I'm going to go ahead and allow Ashley to talk. Go ahead, Ashley.
My screen just unmuted. This is Scott, so I'm not sure if
We can hear you.
But okay. She said Ashley. Sorry about that. I was curious. Hi, my name's Scott Rowan. By the way, this is awesome. This is the first one I've been able to attend, but it is an important one for me as well. Water conservation and working with several communities we work with. I know one of our concerns and one of our landscape water management partners has also been working with ADWR on the 5th management plan that is being currently put in place, which is going to greatly reduce. I mean, I think it was highly influenced by golf to make sure they have as much water as they can for grass and less concerned about landscaping. So ultimately, they're going to reduce the water allocation for landscape in half, effective 2023, somewhere in there. And it almost encourages people to, or commercial and HOAs to keep turf in order to keep water allocations, especially as we start getting into higher density of landscape planted materials. So I'm just curious if that's been as part of your future planning or discussion, or if you've been involved with ADWR at all regarding non-golf allocations for water.
Brian, this is for you.
Yeah, we've been heavily involved with discussions not only on the 4th management plan, but the 5th management plan. And regarding the non-turf, golf type facilities, we through AMWA, the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, provided a lot of feedback to DWR regarding reductions in allocations, the conservation allotments for these types of facilities like HOAs and things like that. And I think you will see a reduction in the amount of grassed areas for HOAs. And I can't speak for the golf courses because they definitely had a strong lobby. And I just kind of monitored where that was going. But again, I would like to say that golf is losing money. It's not as popular as it used to be. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of these larger type facilities going away. And you're going to be stuck with just a handful around the valley that people go to play at. So overall, I think you're going to end up seeing a reduction in water use. And that is the goal, trying to get to safe yields. So we have to.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is also the practice of overseeding will need to go away. And I think it'll be effective immediately based on the allocations they're going to provide. And the fact that they're, right now they're education based, but come 5th management plan, there's going to be fines involved. And so the allocations they're giving won't support overseeding grass. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so we're coming up on the bottom of the hour now. At this point, we have answered all the questions that have come in through the chat, as well as addressed our one hand that was raised. But before we wrap things up today, I want to ask our panelists if they have any final thoughts, but at the same time, if any of our attendees have some final thoughts or questions they'd like to share, please feel free to use that chat now or use that raise hand feature. So panelists, any final thoughts?
I guess I'll make a quick statement. Thank you very much for attending. Please share word of our initiative with your neighbors, your coworkers. We really want to get as much input on our climate action plan as possible. Footprint for Teresa will give the website again.
I was just putting our panelists on the spot for a moment to give all of you just a chance to put in any last questions or thoughts if you had any. I'm not seeing any coming through at the moment. I think this was a great conversation today. A lot of great questions. I think we made it through nearly 20, I believe. So before we sign off today, I want to encourage all of our attendees to continue visiting the footprintfuturemesa.com website. We're constantly adding content, adding polls, sharing information. As I mentioned earlier, we launched a survey about 10 days ago. This next slide here shows a QR code. If any of you have your phone handy and you want to scan that, that'll take you directly to the survey and you can take it today. We also want to encourage you to share that link and QR code with friends and family and coworkers. So lastly, thank you so much for attending. We hope to see you at any of our final 2 sessions. We will post the video for this by this time tomorrow. So if you'd like to share it with others, it will be on that footprintfuturemesa.com website. All right, thank you all so much again for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.